whoever designed Mauga, I will also come down and slap them.
I just think they missed the point of heroes actually being fun.
I think it's not a fair game mode because you're either getting steamrolled, you're either drawing, or you're steamrolling. And any game mode that really is like that is just not a good game mode in my opinion.
Welcome back to Overthink, the game show where I ask contestants a series of Overwatch hot takes to see where they stand. Feel free to play along in the comments to let me know what your opinions are on these hot takes. And if you'd like to actually be on an episode, go ahead and sign up in my Discord. I host these live on my Twitch channel most Sundays, so please go follow me on there to catch a show live. And lastly, please don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more content like this. They should bring back 6v6.
While I do love 6v6, I don't think that it's possible to bring it back with tanks and the way they are now. If you change tanks and the way they work in the game, and you reduce the DPS they do, you reduce their health, all of that, I do think that it's possible to go back to the old ways. And I would love it because I felt like back then the game was a little more balanced if you exclude, the shield meta. I did think that it was a lot better and more fun. So that's why I think we should bring back 6v6.
I think they should bring back 6v6 for a different reason. So I often play in low ranks and my team is very, very spread out 90% of the time. So I think having another damage sponge would be very, very helpful for sort of more spread out gameplay, especially in lower ranks.
I think 6v6 should be brought back. I think during Overwatch 1, it was so much more fun having that just extra person. I think the only reason I'm in slightly agree though, I was going to go in neutral, but I just kind of like 6v6 more, but the reason I'm not full agree is because a lot of changes would have to be made. Like, for example, Mauga would be way too OP in a 6v6 scenario. Obviously, tank health and that would have to be reduced back to what it was like during Overwatch 1. There are just a lot of changes that would have to happen to make 6v6 possible, but I think it was just a lot more fun when 6v6 was a thing instead of 5v5.
I think that 6v6 was very unique when the game came out. I played when it came out and launched, and I thought that it was really unique to have an FPS game that was 6v6. I think that it was cool how Overwatch has different sub-roles within their roles. So for support, there's main support, flex support, and for DPS, it's like flex support and hit scan. I think that I enjoyed playing tank in Overwatch 1 because I like playing off tank, but ever since Overwatch 2, I stopped playing tank because it was just not as fun. It's a lot more responsibility on the tank, and also the tank's kind of like 50-50. If you're either good, you're good at the tank, you can carry. If you're not good and you're decent, you're just not gonna carry because you're your only tank. I think it added a lot of responsibility, and I think that just because of that, I kind of somewhat disagree, just because I think it wouldn't be really something that could be added in Overwatch 2. Ever since they added the new tanks and changed everyone, it just wouldn't really be possible, but I do agree that it was a unique playstyle for the game.
For me, 5v5 is just a lot, very less cutlery on screen and stuff. It's just, I don't know, it's easier to play. I know the problem is with the tank. I also have problem playing tank because I think having this pressure of whole team just on you, it's just a lot. But I think this problem could be fixed by actually changing the team composition to 2-1-2. That's just my little just opinion. But I think the devs shouldn't really go back to 6v6. It would just make the whole game messier again, and I just wish the devs would be more sure about the changes they make. So if they want to go back to 6v6 now, then why did they ever go to the 5v5?
With 6v6, I feel like DPS lose a lot of their freedom to do whatever they want, because with 6v6, you can have a Rein D.Va comp and have the Rein hold frontline, but the DPS, if you're playing a flanker like DPS, Genji, or Tracer, they can't really get away with stuff because you can have that D.Va just peel the backline, just as easily without losing pressure on your frontline. Also, new tanks really wouldn't work like Mauga or Ram. You'd have to kind of revert all the changes that you've just made to tanks in general, because they were designed for 5v5 and not with 6v6 in mind. And I just feel like it would be a step backwards from the 2 years we've had Overwatch 2. And I just think the meta would have to evolve around everyone going back to the way they were, and the new tanks just being probably pretty poor, I would have to guess, in the 6v6 landscape.
Overwatch will never be able to return to what it was in its prime, which, according to a lot of people, was 2016 to 2017. I All right, we have 3 people in agree, 2 people in somewhat agree, 2 people in somewhat disagree, and 1 person in disagree. Another pretty split hot take here, where we have at least 1 to 2 people per stance, except neutral. Y'all are holding on to your neutral pass. That's good. That's a smart way to play. All right, let's start with the agreeers. Though these people think Overwatch will never be able to return back to what it was in its prime. Why?
I played during this 2016-17, obviously, but I think for me, what it comes down to is the reason it was so good and it got Game of the Year and it was just, you know, at its peak, I think it was just something no one saw, right? Like there was no other game. Even today, there's games similar, but it doesn't match to Overwatch. But at the time when it came out, it was such a new thing. Nothing compared. It was just no one knew what a lot of the stuff was doing. Everyone was learning. Kind of like at the same time, there was all these cool heroes with a bunch of lore they gave with the cinematics, and it was just boatloaded with like passion and stuff, especially because it was new. And after, you know, like almost coming up on like 8 years now, it kind of like there's like gained knowledge with the player base. Like as more years go, just basic information today is like advanced information we had when the game first came out. So it's kind of like the base level keeps going up and up. And to kind of get that peak again, I don't think it's even possible, because everyone now, especially just in the environment of gaming, everyone's just like have to be the most optimized, the best, be good at the game, yada yada. And especially with Overwatch like that, I know it's a casual game, but most of the time it's like everyone always usually plays to win. I don't know, the feeling is always different, right? Like new game, it's completely new, everyone's learning together, and after 8 years, there's people that get left behind because of all the information that's out already. So to get as high as it used to be, I don't think it'll ever happen. Will it get close? Maybe, because there's new heroes, there's new maps and stuff like that. But at its peak, I don't think it'll ever reach the peak it had back in like 2016-17.
I agree a lot with what the last person just said. Obviously, it was a new game, brand new game, new hype, new type of style of game. Blizzard had a lot of passion towards the beginning. They had a lot of passion, they had a lot of updates, and kind of kept the community engaged. I think it kind of just fell off ever since 2020, when they had that 1 or 2 or 3 year gap of just no updates at all. I think that's kind of when Overwatch went completely downhill and lost all its hype and everything like that, and they can't regain that hype back, I don't think, from the 2016. It can obviously go back up. Obviously at the beginning of Overwatch 2 it was quite hype, but not as much as Overwatch 1. I don't think it would be able to reach that new high again unless they released a brand new game, which obviously I don't think they'd release Overwatch 3. It just kind of feels now that Blizzard have lost their passion for the game. Like they've obviously put in a lot of work into it, but you don't feel the passion anymore. It's all about microtransactions and purchasing items on the item shop, and it's not about what the community kind of wants.
I don't really think what they had to say is something that the people I play with feel. For me, it's more of a social thing to play video games, so it's more the people you play with rather than the game you're playing itself. Therefore, I think Overwatch still can meet, you know, this idea of it being at its peak, just depending on the interest of my social group. And I feel like a lot of other players play a very similar way to me.
I do think there's a chance. Like, I want to be optimistic, as it is my favorite game. The Prime was always the funnest, playing with the friends with mine. But I always think there's a chance, because from what we have seen recently, they're trying to learn, they're trying to do better. I know they break promises, I know they've done all that, but I just don't want to break trust. Trust is a very useful tool, but back in the Prime times, it was 66, right? Now, I always thought that was not really the Prime, because the first ever creator patch, I think it was 2017, that was like when Overwatch was one of the biggest. So first it came out, it became very prominent, Game of the Year. But when Overwatch 2 also instantly came out in beta, there was like over 1 million people on the Twitch and just for Overwatch 2. It showed that it was like a new experience. If they just gain the trust again, gain our trust, I think there's a chance. It shows that they just want the game they care about to be better. So I think there is always a chance to bring back the Prime if they just learn.
All right. Is there anybody that after hearing others speak would like to change their stance?
I did change my stance, just hearing what's Rain saying basically. There's really a lot coming to what's fun for us as players. So for example, me, as I'm mostly solo player, I do take a lot from just the game on its own. And like the most fun I ever had, okay, maybe not the most, but like the second most fun I ever had in Overwatch was actually when Overwatch 2 released. I don't know if it's because the content dropped, but for example, the PvE event we had for Halloween in Season 1, that was like the best PvE event. I would say even top Archives Retribution. So I think there is definitely like space and time for Overwatch to return to its peak. It's just the devs needs to like catch up, stop rushing content, start hyping up the content.
Push is worse than 2CP.
I think push gets very, very heavily determined on whoever wins the first fight and builds ults quickest, and I think push is another one of those modes that they just kind of shoehorned in because they needed something to fill the void of 2CP instead of trying to fix 2CP. I think with enough like careful looking at it, they could have fixed it, but they just decided to get rid of it because it wouldn't work with 5v5. I also just think that I am hooking on to 2CP because I loved playing Junkrat and spamming chokes, so...
Kind of just added on. Completely agree with what Parkway was saying about how when the first person wins on the push map, they kind of win the whole game because you have to win 2 battles to then get back and push forward to the opposite team. I think it was just awful what they did with 2CP. 2CP was a great game mode in my opinion. Everyone just kind of came together and all agreed that it wasn't great, but I think it was one of the best game modes. It was one that I had the most fun with, in my opinion, out of all the game modes. So I definitely missed 2CP when it was gotten rid of. I also think as well, the thing with push maps and 2CP is the actual maps themselves. Everyone loves Hanamura. I don't know anyone that doesn't like the map Hanamura and Temple of Anubis. Obviously no one likes Volskaya, but we ignore that. And they should have at the very least, I know they did it, they're kind of trying to do it with Flashpoint, but they should have put those maps into at least the push rotation and made them into a push map by extending them or doing something with them.
First of all, I'd like to say that Volskaya is my favorite of the 2CP maps, just letting you know. I think it's a phenomenal map, and as a Symmetra main myself, I was having a lot of fun. And while I do think 2CP was a perfectly fine game mode, the only reason I'm in somewhat disagree is because I think push can be twisted and played around, and it could potentially be a good game mode that is actually fun and also has a lot of suspense as a match, because most of the matches I've played with push, it's either I win instantly or I lose instantly. There's no in between. And about 2CP, just like the people in Agree said, the maps of 2CP, most of them are fan favorites. They defined Overwatch up until today. Even Hanamura, to be specific, has been one of the best maps and most iconic maps of the game. So you have to bring them back in a way, in my opinion.
Well, for me, I consider 2CP as like an okay game mode. Like there was some moments of the game like it was worst experiences ever. But there was sometimes like we enjoyed it. You know, the roles we had with Ryan Czar and like, you know, Kawamura first point. Like I know first point wasn't the best, but like there was always one side that enjoyed it at least. And sometimes both sides could like, it took a long time. But what do you expect from some games? If there's a stalling mechanic, there's always going to be extra time. And 2CP had tons of stalling points because there was 2 points, just like how Flashpoint is. But Flashpoint, I think Flashpoint was just a better polished version of 2CP. It has less distance, multiple points, just 5, and they're quicker. Like, if 2CP was like Flashpoint, I think a lot of us would enjoy it more. But for how it is right now, it's not the best, but the maps was really fun. I also hate push a lot. As a Ryan player, push isn't fun. It sucks, like, because in push, in plat, like, most characters in push just makes Reinhardt unplayable in most times. And his charge isn't the quickest. And so he's, like, so annoying. Like, mentally, push is worse, but physically, 2CP was worse. Which is why I put it in neutral.
I disagree. I think push is just a little bit, only for the fact that the choke points on 2CPs were so annoying. I have nightmares, PTSD of trying so hard because it was most of the 2CP maps were always focused on one lane to get onto the point. almost every single one of them. Some of them had maybe like the one main lane and then it split off to like 3, and then you try to like work around it but there was a reason, like I think 2 of the 2 CP maps were completely deleted from like the competitive play because of how just unfair it was, or like how dumb the design was. Even the lunar colony was redesigned, it still sucked, and that's the main point, right? And then push has its own problems with, again, like someone said earlier, winning fights early and getting ults early does sway a lot, but I feel like it is just, especially because it opens up for DPS players. I know DPS players have such a fun time on that map because there's so many flank routes and it's so open, it's not so linear. There's so many routes you can take. So I disagree that push is worse. I think push is just a little bit better. They both have their own problems, but I feel like one was definitely, like 2CP was definitely worse, I would say.
I believe that 2CP was just really bad game mode because it was always more favored for the first point for attack, and then for the second point it was always defense favored. And I think because of that it made the gameplay really either you get steamrolled or you get a draw, and it was just it was one or the other. So it was just not fun to play in as any role, because it was either you're just getting steamrolled, or sure, if you're steamrolling that's fun, but really, like, I think it's not a fair game mode because you're either getting steamrolled, you're either drawing, or you're steamrolling. And any game mode that really is like that is just not a good game mode in my opinion. And I think that push is more fair because the map's angles are less one-sided to attack and defense, because there is no attack and defense. I think that makes it a lot more fair version of 2CP. But I also, agree that what everyone else said about bringing the maps back, because I think that everyone, every OG, like Overwatch 1 player loves the OG maps. Everyone loves Hanamura. They should definitely bring it back and make it, I would say, a Flashpoint map, just because of how it was 2CP related. I think it'd be great.
Can I give my 2CP hot take? If you complain about 2CP being unfair, it's a skill issue. Because, yes, it can be unfair when you're defending and they roll you on both points with 5.5 minutes to spare, but you have the same opportunity and the same chance to do the exact same back to them when it's your turn to attack. And if you don't, skill issue. Whereas in push, if you lose that first fight, you then have to do double the work to take the lead. So there's no clean slate or anything like that you have in 2CP. So even though 2CP doesn't feel good at times, at least both teams have the chance to do the rolling with a clean slate. Whereas in push, it really comes down to like who wins that first fight, and then the other team that didn't win the fight is kind of having to play like catch up, and it doesn't feel as good. So I think both feel bad, but one comes down more to a skill issue and the other one comes down more to a coin flip. But that's my take. I just wanted to chime in with that. Anyways, moving on. Character design was better in Overwatch 1 compared to now, where they reworked heroes such as Doomfist, Orisa, etc.
I realize I made a mistake, but I always enjoyed DPS Doom. I used to main DPS Doom in, Overwatch 1 as my DPS. But I think there was, better design because, in my opinion, 66 is just better. I enjoyed 66 more outside of 2CP. So, because, the character designs, example, by not charge, you were more easily punished. It's so much harder to punish people, and you should be able to be easily punished for mistakes you do. But the character designs in Overwatch 2, like Himiko, Stuzu, or why not stopping charge, or easier rotates, makes it so much harder to punish for bad plays. So just for that, that's why I put myself through. Outside of Orisa, I hate Orisa. Always hate it.
Honestly, if I could find the person that decided to make these changes, I would slap them in the face. I absolutely hate most of the changes that they made. So Doomfist, I used to play Doomfist a lot. I can't stand Doomfist now. I can't play him. He should have stayed a DPS. He should have been slightly reworked maybe, because he was a bit OP with his one-hit punch ability. But he shouldn't have been put into a tank in my opinion. May Freeze, I hate whoever decided to take away May's Freeze. I loved that freeze. I used to also be a main, so they completely ruined May for me. Bastion, I feel like Bastion, their change was quite good in some areas, although I don't like the moving turret ability. Zarya, absolutely disgusting what they've done with Zarya. Having 2 bubbles, I hated that because it's just a complete waiting game, and I get that it's more skillful because you have to kind of time when the Zarya has a bubble or not, but she has bubble way too often. So I think the majority of the changes that they made were absolutely rubbish, and I don't know what they were thinking, but there are some changes that were kind of decent. That's why I'm not in full agree.
I'd just like to say that, okay, I get Orisa and Doomfist changes, tank changes in general, but I feel like changes that happen to the game, like in general, aren't good in Overwatch 2 compared to Overwatch 1. Okay, as much as I love the old Symmetra, for example, I do prefer the old Symmetra than the current one. It was a must change for the game. Same with Mercy changes. When Overwatch 2 released, what they tried to do is that they tried to change Doomfist so they have more tanks. They tried to change Orisa so that she fits more on the 5v5. I just think they missed the point of heroes actually being fun and actually not just being DPSs. I don't think that any of the new reworks hit, I'm not gonna lie.
I think not in terms of design changes from Overwatch 1 to 2. I think if we're talking about when they released the characters, I think in Overwatch 1 they had hits and misses. Like Ana and Echo I felt implemented pretty well, while Brig and Doom were kind of ridiculous with Brig existing on release and Doomfist being able to one-shot anyone every 4 seconds. And then in terms of Overwatch 2 adding characters, I think specifically the tanks weren't really in depth. Like Junker Queen, Mauga, and Ramattra feel kind of like stale in the way you play them. It doesn't feel like they're very mechanically demanding. And also Sojourn being on release with a one shot to the head was kind of ridiculous. Don't know how that made that through the boardroom.
Pardon my French, I want to use my one swear word. I think both designs for both games are dog because they both have instances where they come up with a character. Parkway mentioned it, like Brig coming out of release Brig, completely changing the fundamentals of the game, right? Like that is a moment in history. Also having Sojourn out and being the way she was, that's a, it could be a skill issue, but still like we only just recently got a nerf to her after like a year of her being just the best DPS, right? And then they do good characters like in the first game with Ana. They made some changes, but Ana's just so popular because of how just good everything is with her. Everything is a skill shot. It was all you need to have good position because she has no movement and yada yada yada. And then even with Overwatch 2, me kind of disagreeing because like Junker Queen being, I think actually does require a lot of mechanical with hitting the knife because it's not, or at least it used to be not that easy. And then also because she has no armor, she really has to know her positioning, play her angles, and have good cooldown management, all that other stuff. And then, there's just so many instances in both Overwatch 1 and 2 where they have good characters and good design, and they have really bad characters and really bad designs, and then really bad reworks and yada yada yada. Like Sim having 3 reworks in Overwatch, 1, changed her again in this game. Same with Sombra. It's just, I don't think they've been good, or like they haven't been better in the past, and they still aren't better now. They just in general throughout the whole history, they're just like, we either hit a home run or we completely whiff, and it's just like that's just how it's been, and for me at least.
So the way I took the question with the characters design wise, I took that as sort of the visual appearance of the characters, and I think the new heroes are absolutely gorgeous. Their animations and their models are so nice, and with some of the new support heroes like Iliari and Kiriko, I think that their technical side with having a lot of precision in the damaging abilities, I think is very, very good for the game, because with characters like Baptiste from Overwatch 1, there wasn't much skill required to do the same job, basically.
I also want to say, I feel like the new characters we have way stronger personality. They're like really specific. I don't know, it just makes them more real, to be honest, than like some of the Overwatch characters. So in terms of new heroes, I would say Overwatch 2 is way better. In terms of reworks, I don't know, it just pisses me off a bit to see like some heroes like Symmetra getting reworked over and over again. And like sometimes it's just too much.
Is there anybody that would like to change their stance after hearing other people speak? Cool. We have Reinhardt going from agree to somewhat agree. Why?
So I was supposed to go to some agree originally, but I was like too late. But also I want to add some things. I completely agree with Breakthing. I completely agree with that. stuff. I still hold my opinion of truth. I feel like I said my opinion was good. But I also agree with the other people, like one of the disagree people saying like Shay was saying his thing, and I agree with that. I also agree with my thing because like, oh, I feel like the game needs more skillful moves.
Role passives are bad for the game.
I was gonna stay and agree, but I changed my mind only because it's kind of like a necessary evil in a way, where because of the format 5v5, you know, we kind of need something unique for the roles, especially with like tank being the one tank, and you know, a lot of the tank changes that happened a couple seasons ago kind of helped a lot of them, not all of them, but definitely they all got a flavor of something, you know, reduced headshots, armor changes, yada yada yada, and you know that's where some good can be said, but then I also don't want to fully agree, just because, you know, it's some of the passives were just objectively better, the healing passive being one of them, you know, being so good that they actually just gave it globally to everybody, right? Supports just get it faster. And then they actually changed the DPS one from what it originally was, and it's actually the second one we had it, because the first one was affected some characters better than others, and so they changed it again. And even then, it was because it wasn't even a DPS problem, it was another roles problem, support, and they gave us the new one, which is the 20% reduced healing. I just feel it was only even mentioned or only brought into the game just because it was Overwatch 2, right? Air quotes, Overwatch 2. It's new. You need something to differentiate it. So they're like, oh, let's just give passives to the roles. Awesome. And then it's like they just thought it was cool and then didn't really think of any repercussions. But then again, it's like some, like the tanks really kind of need it. But then a lot of the others are just kind of like, why? Why did you do this?
So I think he was kind of right about the necessary evils thing. And I also think passives are... They're okay if they're done correctly. I think the second DPS passive we got was, at least for DPS, was pretty bad. Supports is kind of whatever, but I think the tank passive, it kind of just made their life just a little bit easier because playing tank is already pretty miserable. So I think they just kind of needed it to help them, but I don't think things like the new DPS passive should really be the thing to dictate whether or not the passives are good or not for the game. But the current DPS passive just probably isn't what DPS characters need. I think it's a little too good for what it does, especially because you just have to hit the target and not a set amount of damage.
What I wanted to say was what others said, how like tank passive was like really needed, like especially with the knockback, because sometimes it was like just too much, just too hard playing as a tank. Also, for example, the support passive. I mean, now every hero heals on their own, but for example, if you take a look on Ana, who had to either be healed by health pack, other healer, or like the nade that is on cooldown, that was like miserable. So I think in this case they're kind of helpful. I would say they need a lot of thought put into it, like a lot of balancing. As others have mentioned, the DPS passive can be a little bit too much. I think the DPS passive is good. Maybe it should just be like valued down a bit, but yeah, that's about it.
So I think the passives don't negatively impact the game at all. That's normally a good thing because it means you have a better character without any negative impact. Especially with the support passive, it was necessary, I think, for pretty much all of the supports that don't have self-healing, or like Baptiste with a long cooldown on his self-healing. And then the tank passive really helps when you're playing tank, and as a tank main, not being easily booped off the edge or something is useful. You know, I don't think Lucio should be able to just run into the team and push the whole team off the edge of the map. So still being able to have your tank there with, I think it's 25% knockback reduction, is necessary.
After hearing other people speak, is there anybody that would like to change their stance? We have Cassidy going from disagree to somewhat disagree, and we have Reinhardt going from somewhat agree to agree. Cass, why did you move?
The reason I moved after kind of listening, I had more time to think about it. I like the support passive and I like the damage passive. Those both are fantastic. The one I don't like is the knockback tank passive. As a current Wrecking Ball main and a old Lucio main, I don't like the fact that I can't knock back people and I can't knock them into the void. Often when I'm doing a rollout on Ball, I find that when I go in for a boop off the map on Lijiang Tower or something like that, if it's a hog, they just don't move at all. I don't know what it is, you can't get that boy to move. The other tanks, they kind of can move, but it is really, really hard to get them off the map. And I feel like that part of Overwatch is quite skillful to have to be able to knock people off. I feel like it's now impossible to knock any type of tank off or anything like that. I also agree with something that Valueless said. I believe it's something like that Overwatch kind of just implemented these passives to change up Overwatch when it went from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2. I agree with that. However, I do believe the majority of the passives, like, they benefit the game, but it's just that tank knockback passive I do not agree with whatsoever.
I hate the DPS passive as a Reinhardt player. So basically, it makes me unable to play that game a lot. Also, for me, so the last question hot take was like about reworks and stuff. The exact same thing is happening with these passives. They keep being reworked. DPS, beta, rework. Season 1, 2, 3, just whatever season it was, reworked. Now it's 20% P1 reduction, which was turned to 15 reduction, then 20% reduction. They keep reworking, fixing, they keep changing it. It's annoying, I hate it. It just keep changing it too much. It's clearly not working. If they just nerfed damage, in my opinion, I think the game would be better. Just nerf damage universally.
I prefer Overwatch 1's loot box monetization system.
I find what they did with loot boxes was atrocious. I love the loot box system, and I get that they removed it because, one, it was like a gambling aspect. I know some countries had banned loot boxes, and obviously they went free to play, so they weren't going to make as much money. I understand why they did it, but it just feels so awful that they removed it. You know, I paid the money to get Overwatch 1. I want to keep my loot boxes. I like the system where you'd earn coins if it's a duplicate, and you could buy any skin you wanted. It would be more expensive, obviously, the first time round if it's an event. So obviously, it'd be 3,000 coins instead of 1,000. But I found that system so much better. Now we have like 5 or 6 different currencies that we have to keep track of, and we have legacy coins, and now we end paid coins, and some skins you can't use legacy coins, some skins you can, like the new ones you can't. I find that absolutely ridiculous, and just kind of they just want the money, which obviously is a business. They need to do that. I just feel like we've been cheated out, especially the Overwatch 1 people, because we paid the money to get Overwatch 1. Sure, we did have that good experience with Overwatch 1, but that doesn't mean that obviously now, because it's free to play, now we have to pay for absolutely everything that we want skin wise. Obviously the only thing that I will pay for really is like the Pink Mercy ones for charity. Apart from that, everything else just needs to be accessible through legacy coins, in my opinion, even if they are more expensive than the other skins.
I just think the whole shop system that they did after they removed loot boxes, obviously, is unacceptable to say the least. The fact that you're charging around $20 euros, whatever currency you have, for a recaller of a skin is insane to me. And the fact that what I loved about loot boxes is that even if you didn't pay anything, you could get the skin you wanted if you played enough, or maybe you could get enough coins. And what they did after a while with loot boxes is that the duplicates you'd get wouldn't be completely random. They'd be the skins that you don't have, or the cosmetics that you don't have, or currency, which would again help you get the skin you wanted, which was very healthy for the game. But they made the game free, they need the money, and quite frankly, I just think it's a cash grab. And the skins aren't even that impressive. Most of them are just recallers. So I just expected more from them. I don't know what else to say.
I believe that the way the battle pass system is right now and how the shop works is just like Overwatch kind of like money grabbing, because a lot of other video games do that. I think removing loot boxes was a weird choice because I think a lot of people enjoyed that kind of RNG part of the game, and it was something that, you know, was unique to Overwatch itself. I think that I understand somewhat why they removed it. From what I know, it was like a gambling issue, and it's understandable. But I think it was fun for Overwatch players to have something, you could get coins and currencies when you got duplicates. And I thought that it was very good way of, playing games. You got loot boxes. It was an actual reward that you got for playing games. And I thought that it was very good to look forward to.
I, in my opinion, just completely disagree with all of them and agree wholeheartedly. I only agree with them is what the loot box part, free part of it. But the definition of monetization is like, what is the money part of it? You know, one of those days where you get like 10 loot boxes in a row with only blues and grays? That was not a fun feeling. I despised it. I only enjoyed loot boxes because it was free. I hated everything else about it, and I'm happy that it was taken away. If they were just free and you can't pay for them, I'd be happy to bring them back. But how it is right now, I would prefer. because now you can get credits from challenges. That's fun. I enjoy that. So, yeah.
Like my goddess has once said, if you're a broke boy, just say so. But like, the thing is with loot boxes, I remember when the first anniversary came out and I went out of my way. I was like, because I was on console, I was like, I'm gonna go buy some PSN codes and, you know, see if I can get it for my favorite character. And I got 200 loot boxes that day. I didn't get, because I played Genji, I didn't get any of the Genji stuff. Didn't get his highlight. I didn't get his skin. I got nothing. And then finally, I earned one for free, and that's when it popped up. I'm like, that's crazy. So I think the randomness really peeved me off with this new one. Also, a big factor we have to remember is the game is, like everyone says, it's free to play. They have to make money in some way. Loot boxes wasn't doing it, especially because you just paid the game. And also back in the day, if you made a new account for like alts and whatever, you had to pay the game again. This way, you can have more accounts and you can spend however much money you want, get a specific skin you want. If you miss when they come out on the shop, well, GG's, you know, better luck next time. But, you know, now it's like, it's way more controlled. They get money, like actual direct money from people. They're able to, you know, if a skin does well for a character, they make even better skins. Although I will say Venture hasn't gotten a single legendary, but that's a different issue. But yeah, I just didn't like how much you had to open sometimes when you wanted the character you wanted. Now it's like, if the character shows up in the shop, boom, you get it. You know what you're getting, you know what you're paying. It's just up to you if you want to spend money or not.
Is there anybody that after hearing other people speak would like to change their stance? Okay, quite a few people. So we had 2 people go from agree to somewhat agree, and we had 1 person go from somewhat disagree to disagree.
For me, I was grinding a lot of like loot boxes. I was just playing a lot just to get like all of these new skins and stuff. But hearing what Dumfries had to say, so for example, they just wanted like this one skin and just couldn't get it. Now I can understand more the flows of loot box systems. Because for me, it was just like, oh, you get all the items for free. That's like easy. But yeah, I think the problem right now for me is still you need to like pay. You can't really get everything like before you could, but now you can't. But yeah, it's better in terms of like if you just want like one skin, then you can pay for what you want, which is good in this case.
I've decided to just change to full disagree because I only enjoy loot boxes because it was free, like I said before. Also, yeah, like gambling, it added. Who enjoys gambling? Spend more money and then more and more. That's gonna waste so much money, and you might not even get the skin you want. I completely agree with you, but I also think it should never be added back again. Take it away completely. It was from the past. It was something they tried, and it failed. So I don't think they should ever bring it back.
The Overwatch team does a bad job at making tanks balanced and enjoyable to play. All right. 2 people in agree, 4 people in somewhat agree, 1 person in neutral, and 1 person in somewhat disagree. So let's hear from 1 person in agree. Who would like to start?
My only question is, have you seen Mauga? Mauga is the most ridiculous tank I've ever seen. He's the most unbalanced, non-enjoyable tank. I honestly, whoever designed Mauga, I will also come down and slap them like I would with the previous one, because it's just ridiculous. Whenever anyone picks Mauga, especially first, the game's just not enjoyable. I'm not sure if any of you guys have seen that video on Twitter, on Blizzard World, where it's literally just Mauga versus Mauga. It is so ridiculous that the whole game is literally 2 tanks that are shooting each other constantly with 2 healers behind them, and it's whoever lasts the longest wins, or if someone gets an anti-off or something like that. Mauga is just the most unbalanced crap hero I have ever seen. Also with some other heroes like Reinhardt, he's heavily underpowered in my opinion. He definitely needs to be buffed and he's not being looked into properly. And yeah, just Mauga needs to get removed basically. Get Mauga out.
I think most of the tanks are not balanced, but there are a good few that I think Sigma is well balanced, hence I play him. I think Junker Queen's in a pretty good state at the moment, and I think that Ramatra's pretty good at the moment. None of these are like the S-tier characters to play at the moment, but I do think that they're very well balanced. You know, you can play a quick play game with them, no one's going to complain. You know, they don't do too much damage, they don't have too much resistance to everything going on around them. I think they're in a pretty good spot, but characters like Mauga and I mean even Hog, they are borderline unplayable and not fun to play against either.
Number one only reason I'm not in full agree is because of the recent patches. some of the recent patches, they be cooking. Nerfing Risa down, helping with like the knockback issue, which I don't fully like. Like, there's some things I despise. I hate Malga. I hate the design of Malga. I hate the design of Risa. This is gonna be a really big hot take. I don't think Sigma fits for how much he does. He does too many good things. Fun fact, in some of the past comps, there was Boss Sigma, Poke Sigma. The only thing he doesn't fit is Dive. I don't think that should be allowed. I don't think he's well designed because he just has too much. Right now, he's not the best. But when it becomes a Poke meta, and when it's just Sigma not being nerfed, it happens again. I'm telling you, it's gonna happen again. Sigma's become overpowered because he's just gonna leave him, and he's gonna become too much.
I'm in neutral because I think the point of OP characters or OP tanks, to be specific, is for them to be OP. When a new character drops, the point is for them, the pattern that they've been doing with a lot of characters, tanks included, is for them to be OP, for them to be super strong so that the character sells, so that people play the game, so that people get in games to play that specific character. And if they do, they're gonna win because they're overpowered. And if they don't win, or if they don't play that character, they're gonna queue again so that they play with that character. That is the pattern and that is the point of Overwatch and most FPS games, to be fair. Not just Overwatch. That is what they've been doing since Overwatch 1 actually. Same thing happened with Brigitte. Brigitte was busted to the point that she changed everything. She changed the meta, she changed how characters work, she changed everything. I think Brigitte worked like that for a good month, maybe even more. It's not like they didn't know. They left her like that because people were all playing Brigitte, they were winning matches, they were ranking up, they were having fun in the game. So, yeah.
I think the question is on tanks, but this can apply with, every character they've made and how they balance things. The thing is, are they good at balancing? I mean, I could say no. I think they kind of don't think everything through. But are they good at making fun characters? I will give it, it's like a half-half with me, So there was a statement I remember where they always, when they design characters, they think of how fun the character is first. They always think of the design, the identity, and how fun they are, and then the balance comes after, right? So Jungle Queen came out, super fun. Hitting the knife was the most satisfying thing. Axes, healing, the tick damage was something new we didn't see. Malga, as much as we hate him, I mean, shooting a fair out of the sky, pretty fun, I would say. It's just kind of fun. And also when you shred a tank, kind of fun, I'm not gonna lie. And then also with Orisa's rework, Doom's rework, once you learn them, they're pretty fun. Now, are they balanced? Hell no. A lot of the times they are so unbalanced, either because it's a new character or because they literally just didn't even think about it. So I would say it's like a half-half. That's why I don't fully disagree. And, sometimes, they do make it better, right? Like Sigma being a character that came out in Overwatch 1, but honestly, like, his whole design is for this game, Overwatch 2. He's an all-rounder, has quite a bit of literally everything. But, I think they're really good at making it fun, but they're always falling short on actually balancing the character. So that would be my take.
Another thing I wanted to mention as well that I just thought of is one word, which is counter-swapping. It has made tanks the least enjoyable thing you can ever imagine. It's honestly awful. So myself, I'm a Wrecking Ball main. I just one-trick Wrecking Ball at this point because I don't care about counter-swapping. But if I'm playing a different hero, so if I'm playing Orisa and someone plays Zarya, then you have to switch. You can physically not play. You'd have to be a god Orisa to be able to beat that Zarya. You have to keep switching and switching and switching and losing your ultimate charge and everything until it gets to a point where it's a Zarya 1v1 or a Malga 1v1, because either Malga would just destroy everyone, so you have to do the Malga 1v1, or a Zarya is just destroying you through either defense matrix or Orisa spin or just going past the shield, so you end up just being Zarya versus Zarya or Malga versus Malga. It's just really boring to play like that. And something that I'd also seen in chat as well is someone said that Hog and Malga are the most boring designed characters they can have ever come up with, and I completely agree with that. They are so boring, and I don't know what they must have been sleeping on the day they were designing those heroes, especially for Overwatch 2, because they are just so boring.
This is kind of my own little take. I think what people have said, Malga really isn't as busted as people say he is. It's just the way he ends up being played in comp is shoot the other Malga till someone dies of old age. But in scrims and whatnot, in Venture comp with Genji, Venture, Malga, he is played like differently than just shooting the other tank. So I think part of like the the stigma of just shooting the other tank is kind of just how it's played in ladder versus how it's played in organized play. And then someone said something about Sigma being like good in Brawl. He could be used in Brawl if his comp lets him, but there isn't many cases where you would honestly prefer a Sigma over a Ryan or a Ramatra in a Brawl comp. He can just do it well if he's needed for like a specific map, but that's all I got.
Overwatch's current monetization system is predatory.
I think that video games, I think there's two different ways of thinking about video games being predatory. I think there's, first the way that, since Overwatch is technically can be a kid's game, right? I think it's rated for everybody. There's issues with the money situation in the game. I think loot boxes they could be considered a predatory issue. I think, the community in general in video games is like that. And I think that also character design is often predatory. I think that a lot of character designs is made very based on make characters look younger as well, which is a different issue. And people romanticize that. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things within Overwatch that can be seen as predatory, and I think that is also an issue for video games in general.
I think it's absolutely predatory. I mean, the loot box system was a little bit, but the way it works in Overwatch 2 and so many things, the mythic skins and the new system that you need to spend $70 or euros or whatever you want to get a mythic skin fully fledged is insane to me. Yeah, okay, you get one for free if you complete the battle pass with all the mythic points. But if you want a previous one, you need to basically pay around $100, which is insane to me. I'm not even gonna get into the recallers and why I think it's predatory, because if somebody doesn't know that this skin existed in the previous version of this game and it was basically free, and now they're paying around $20 to $30 for it, that just sounds insane to me. It sounds, I can't even process it.
What I want to say is, I think in terms of the battle pass, it's fine. Since they switched to free to play, obviously they need to get some money, get some revenue. But I think they are really giving us per amount of coins compared to the amount of items they require you to have them. So I think they really need to give more of the Overwatch 2 coins, or basically allow I don't know, after a year to buy the 1 year ago skins for the legacy coins. But yeah, that's just it.
I don't think it's 100% predatory. You don't have to buy into it, and they tell you don't have to buy into it. They make it very clear. But if you want anything in this game, you need to pay. And I don't think that is sort of consumer forward. I think it's more of the Overwatch devs wanting money rather than here's a bunch of content for the players.
The only reason why I'm not disagree is yeah, they're not fully predatory, because I think we shouldn't be basing it on it itself. I think we should be basing it around other games and what the average price point is. As something in the game, you choose to get it. You get the choice. You don't, oh, that costs too much? Don't buy it. It's right there. And so boom. Mega shots cost way too much, because 1 for 1. That's 1 shard, $1. But since everything costs 50 shards, you have to use $50. That's insane. That's the only thing I don't think is okay, because it's compared to things Apex, Daggers, Valorant, games like that. So compared to other games, I don't see it as bad, besides the mega shots.
I don't think, because from what I said before, it's a decisive choice, right? You either, if it shows up in the shop and you want it and you have the money, awesome, buy it. If you don't have the money, too bad, too sad. And it only recently, it was an issue before, but before they had heroes in the battle pass, and if you bought the battle pass, you got the hero instantly. If you didn't, you had to go up to tier 55 or tier 45 when they changed it. They got rid of that, so it's more even now. So if that was still in the game, then I would be and agree. And then also with Mythic, with deals they have, at least for Overwatch, when you actually break it down, it's not a bad. Some of the deals aren't bad. For the battle pass, I forgot which one it is, but essentially you get the battle pass, you get 2,000 credits, you get 2 legendary skins, and you get tier passes. When you break down all the value for what they sell it for, it's actually a good value. Now, is it expensive? Yes, but you still get a lot out of it compared to what's in the bundle, right? Legendary skins that come out in the shop by themselves are almost $20 each. You get 2 of them, and you get another 2,000 credits, and you get the battle pass, which also has mythic shards, which you get a mythic skin. Previous one specifically, whatever, that value I think it was like $40 maybe. But like when you really break it down, that's actually a steal, right? Now, compared to other games, especially like Valorant's a crime. Or like the League thing that happened recently for that one skin that's $500. That is predatory. That is insane amount of money, right? But when it comes to Overwatch, I don't know. It really is kind of thought out, especially now. Before it was way high. They've kind of reevaluated everything. They rechanged a lot of the prices. You know, like legendaries are cheaper than they were before. They're probably 1,900. They used to be like 2,800. It was insane. So I don't really think. I think they really do change it for us, for the people that want to buy it. I don't think it's like something they're actively trying to be like, hey, we're gonna gatekeep this because you're broke. You know, it's. I don't think so.
Alrighty, that was my last hot take. We like to end our overthinks off by looking at the camera, ulting the camera, and telling the viewers to subscribe to ChristalRaine.
Subscribe.
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 2 to the 1 to the 1 to the 3. I play easy mode and I play to win. I love to die and I like to BRB. All systems checked out. Group up with me. 2 to the 1 to the 1 to the 3. I'm here to party. GG. A giant gorilla can keep up with me. You